Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Stacey Davids. We warmly welcome the family of Private Vincent Erle Brinkman, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. We also welcome 331 Squadron Air Force Cadet Unit from Coffs Harbour. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is earth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Vincent Erle Brinkman, who was killed while fighting on Gallipoli during the First World War. Vincent Brinkman was born in 1892 in the Sydney suburb of Cabramatta, the son of Herbert and Jane Brinkman. He attended Burke Street Public School, and when the First World War began, was working as a railway porter and living in Stanmore. Vincent's father had passed away in 1912 when Vincent was 20 years old. Brinkman enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in May 1915, joining the reinforcements to the 18th Infantry Battalion. In June, he embarked from Sydney aboard the HMAT Kanowna, bound for Egypt, where he would train until his departure for Gallipoli in August. Vincent and the 18th Infantry Battalion landed on Gallipoli on the 19th of August and immediately came to experience the hardships of war. As they worked unloading supplies and ammunition, they came under intermittent Turkish artillery shelling. Within days of their landing, they took part in the bloody and confused action at Hill 60, the last major offensive on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The attacks on Hill 60 were designed to widen the foreshore captured by Allied forces between Anzac Cove and British forces at Suvla Bay. The first attempt on the hill, which began on the 21st of August, was partially successful. Australian, New Zealand, British, and Indian forces captured a foothold on the hill, but not the summit. A subsequent assault the next day was led by Vincent's 18th Battalion. The newly arrived and inexperienced battalion went bravely into action at dawn, but were pushed back by the Turkish defenses. The losses were appalling. Half of the 18th Battalion became casualties, half of which had been killed. On the 27th of August, Australian forces took part in a renewed assault on Hill 60. An artillery bombardment commenced at 4 p.m. and continued for an hour before the attack began. The assault drew immediate and heavy machine gun, rifle, and shrapnel fire from the Turkish positions, particularly on the right flank, where Vincent and the 18th Battalion were advancing. The battle raged for 3 days, during which the objective was taken, partially lost, and then retaken. Australian forces had come near the heights of the hill, but the crest was still beyond their reach. Vincent fell during this bloody battle. Moments after the first assault began on the 27th of August, one of Vincent's comrades saw him lying mortally wounded on the parapet of his trench, begging for water. It would appear that he was struck as soon as he leapt out of the trench into no man's land. He had been on Gallipoli for 9 days. He was 23 years old. His grieving mother, who had lost her husband and son in the space of 3 years, devoted great energy to finding out the particulars of her son's death. Due to the fact that Vincent was initially pronounced missing, she held some hope that her son may one day be found. In November 1915, she wrote to the authorities pleading for more information. I am most anxious to hear something further. Please let me know as soon as possible and relieve an anxious mother's heart. But she was to be bitterly disappointed. An official inquiry declared Vincent presumed dead in January 1916. Due to the chaotic nature of the fighting, his body was never found. Today, his name is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial on Gallipoli, along with more than 4,900 Australian and New Zealand servicemen who have no known grave. Private Vincent Erle Brinkman is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Vincent Erle Brinkman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.